Welcome back. So now we're going to discuss the St. Louis Blues. And the Blues are an interesting case because to me, I think they're still a good team. And I think, they had a down year by their own standards last year. Really, really rough middle patch, and then they made up for it at the end of the season, and they end up in the playoffs, only to get taken out relatively easily by the Colorado Avalanche. So what is there for this year? I like what they've done, and again, I still think that they are a playoff team. I still think this is a team that should be good for the playoffs. What they do when they get there, we'll see. But since the 2019 Stanley Cup, they have yet to win a round. So that's 2 years of not winning a round. I would not be surprised if they were able to win one this year. But again, it's a matter of, are they contenders? Are they in the middle? Do they maybe fall below that playoff line in the Central? The Central is going to be tough. So when we look at their special teams numbers from last year, the power play at 23.2%, which was 6th, fantastic. The penalty kill, 77.8%, which was 25th. It got off to a rough start against Colorado, and it never really got back. I know there were periods there where it looked really good, but by the end of the year, it's 25th. It's not good enough. So look for that number to get better. Their goals for 167, which was 13th. Their goals against 167, which was 19th. So they scored the same number of goals as they allowed, and they're going to want to improve all of this. Other than the power play, they can say the power play is good. We can leave this as it is. But again, their power play is going to change this year because of losses they've gone through. So let's look at their notable draft picks since 2015. There's Vince Dunn. He is now gone from the organization, goes to Seattle. Mikkola at 127th was a good pick. Dunn at 56 was a steal. Then in 2016, they draft Tage Thompson at 26. He is no longer part of the organization. Kyrou at 35. He is still part of the organization, and he's a pick for me as a guy who could be a huge difference maker for St. Louis. Then in 2017, they drafted Thomas, 20th overall, and they drafted Kostin at 31st. And you would think this has to be the year where Kostin starts to work his way into the lineup. 2018, they drafted Bach at 25th. They drafted Perunovic at 45th. Perunovic, maybe this is the year that Perunovic gets himself into the lineup as well. 2019, they drafted Alexandrov at 62nd. They had 5 picks overall that year. They drafted Nabors at 26th in 2020, and they drafted Bolduc at 17 in 2021. And I don't think they're going to be in any hurry with Nabors or Bolduc. I think these are St. Louis Blues players for the future, and I don't think they get put in the lineup in any capacity this season. Their exits are notable. Jayden Schwartz, longtime Blue, is gone. Dunn, longtime Blue, is gone. Hoffman, not a longtime Blue, but part of the reason that power play was so good, he's gone to Montreal. Bozak, still an unrestricted free agent as I record this. Blaine, of course, was traded out to the New York Rangers. So the additions up front, you've got Saad and you've got Buchnevich. If Buchnevich continues that trajectory that he was on in New York, that could be a huge steal for St. Louis. Buchnevich is going to be looking to offset the loss of Hoffman. Saad would be looking to offset losses with other players as well. But it is a strong top 6. So if we look at the last 3 seasons, 2018, 2019, they were 45, 28, and 9. They were 3rd in the Central overall. They won a Stanley Cup. They had an amazing second half to the season. And they showed that being hot entering the playoffs is a huge boost to your team overall. 2019-2020, they finished 42, 19, and 10. First in the Central, but in the return to play, they end up being the 4th seed. They didn't play well in the round robin. And then they lost in the first round against Vancouver. 2020-2021, 27, 20, and 9 for 4th in the West. And again, it was a mediocre season by their standard. They lost in the first round against Colorado. So we'll see how things go. But their forward group, I can see why they're looking to move Tarasenko and why his trade request would be one that management would go, okay. Because they've got Saad, O'Reilly. Tarasenko could be replaced at some point soon by either Kyrou, Thomas getting those minutes and those opportunities. Because it feels like Kyrou and Thomas should be ready for that next step. But when you've got Saad, O'Reilly, Tarasenko, Perron, Schenn, and Buchnevich as your top 6, Perron's in the final year of his contract, so maybe he's moving on at the end of the year. But you need to make room for the kids, too, right? They've already shown they can play. So you've got Sanford, Sundqvist, Kyrou, Thomas, Clifford, Barbashev. That's likely your top 12 right there, right? Mackenzie McEachern, good fill-in. Dakota Joshua, good fill-in as well. Costin's right there, and again, I think Costin's going to, once there's injuries, and there's always injuries with the Blues, Costin should get an opportunity. Nathan Walker, Matthew Pekka's there as well. So some good depth up front, and this is why the kids that are on this side of the board are on this side of the board, because I don't foresee a situation where, unless it's a 9-game tryout, where we're going to see the more prominent of their prospects getting into the lineup. Their defense, Tory Krug, up and down season his first year in St. Louis. I think fans were mostly happy with his performance. Falk showed that he's one of the more underrated defensemen throughout the season. Scandella, Parayko, Mikkola, Bortuzzo. They could use a little bit more depth on the blue line. So if Tarasenko were to get traded, I would think they'd be looking for a defenseman to maybe replace Dunn. So that's probably where they'd be looking. Wallman is there. I like Jake Wallman. It's possible he steps in and helps to offset the loss of Dunn. Santini, Cross, Rosen is there, and as mentioned before, Perunovic. Maybe Perunovic gets that opportunity, gets into the lineup, and they're like, all right, Vince, who? We're good. Now in net, this is where things get interesting. Jordan Binnington wins the Stanley Cup in 2019. Arguments can be made about whether or not he should have won the Conn Smythe. It went to Ryan O'Reilly, and I'm not going to say anything bad about that, but you could make the argument that Jordan Binnington was their most valuable player throughout that playoff run. Since then, it's been a tough go for him. And I've started looking at it and saying, so is this a Cam Ward type situation where a guy comes in, has a great run in the playoffs, and he's going to have that to look back on, and you know, that Stanley Cup's great and all, but is he not quite going to get to that level again? Cam Ward had problems getting back to that level. Ville Husso as the backup. He had some ups and downs throughout the season, but by the end of the year, he's a capable backup. And then there's Charlie Lindgren they've added as a third. Lindgren impressed me at points for the Montreal Canadiens, but he didn't have a lot of opportunities. I don't think he's going to get an opportunity in St. Louis either, unless somebody gets hurt. And then their prospect, Zachary Bolduc, who I know they've signed to an entry-level contract. I don't think he plays this year. I don't think he needs to play this year. Get him time in juniors, get him time on the ice, and get him ready. You know, that next level of his development might be better outside the NHL. Jake Nabors and Nikita Alexandrov. There are some good depth players coming up through this organization. And we'll see whether or not Nabors ends up being a top 9 forward or a top 6 forward or wherever he ends up. But if Kyrou and Thomas are any guide, they will not rush a player into the NHL. They will not rush somebody into an opportunity before they feel that they're ready. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I'm kind of surprised Kyrou's already 5 years out from his draft year. It feels like he's younger than that. And their Stanley Cup odds, 35-1. So their odds aren't great for a Stanley Cup. Their last Stanley Cup, of course, is their only Stanley Cup in 2019. My prediction for them is I still think they're the third best team in the Central. I honestly think they're the third best team in the Central. I think they have a bounce-back season this year. I don't think they are a Stanley Cup contender necessarily, but I do think that 27-20-9 record, that's below where I expect them to be this year. I think that they could be a team that gets 95 points. Maybe it'll take 100 to get third in that division. The number of teams that get 100 points is always kind of alarming to me, because it used to be this big waterwork. It was this big deal. This team got to 100 points this year, and now it's kind of, well, they had 101 points during the regular season, lost in the first round, so it was all right. So, yeah, it's still one of those things that since they added that 3-point game it's a learning curve for me. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. I don't think this team is falling off the cliff just yet. I understand that there are a lot of members of that cup-winning team in 2019 that have left, but I think there's enough character. I think there's enough veteran leadership on this team to count on them as being a playoff team for at least one more year. Their schedule, they start off with 3 games on the road. They're in Colorado on the 16th. Keep in mind that the schedule starts on the 12th. So they do have a few days before their schedule gets going. On the 18th, they're in Arizona, and then on the 20th, they're in Vegas. So that road trip, it'll be interesting to see if they can win 2 out of 3 on that road trip. Then they're at home on the 23rd against LA and on the 25th against LA as well. So if they can peg off a couple of back-to-back wins against LA, that could help them as well. And then they're against Colorado in St. Louis on the 28th. So they have 2 games against Colorado in October. And then on the 30th, Chicago comes in. One thing that could happen this year, we could see a new angle on the feud between St. Louis and Chicago. 2 teams that don't like each other a whole lot. And if Chicago gets more competitive, and if St. Louis is seen as being maybe, middle of the road, it is possible that Chicago is a little bit closer than where I currently have them in my predictions. And those could be quite the battles between St. Louis and Chicago this year. Could be a lot of fun to watch, because they usually are. Central Division battles are usually a lot of fun to watch. And of course, St. Louis, Colorado, we'll see how it goes with the rematch. After being kind of embarrassed by them in the first round this year, they're going to want to go out and prove themselves and get off to a good start. So I'm looking forward to that. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Where do you think the St. Louis Blues end up finishing this year? Which means, yes, tomorrow I'm doing Tampa Bay and Toronto. The next day is Vancouver and Vegas. And then it's Washington and Winnipeg. And then we're done. All right. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.